Hey, what's going on, everyone? Check out what's coming up this week on Legacies. So, Health Canada, get the fuck off your ass and do something, because this is getting out of control. It really is.
So when I got on the call and they were hearing like, oh, they wanted lasers underneath the table, I go, no, that's
what the fuck?
no. Yeah.
I go to horse racing, right? Some of these studs are fucking millions of dollars just to have sex with your...
We're talking after eight, the VCC. That's what we're talking.
Right. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to Legacies. I'm your host, Tom Ritchie, joined by Wes, not feeling so good, Wesley Bowles today. Wes, I feel like a fucking asshole having you have to get on for a Legacies podcast today.
It's been a rough couple of days. I won't lie.
Well, let's at least remind everyone that Legacies is powered by Breadstack Retailers. It's time to up your econ game. Maybe it's time to reach out to Breadstack too. We're seeing some pretty good results. Check them out. Have you seen the results? Like some of these testimonies that are coming in?
Yeah. Like 30% increase in sales and all these numbers. It's pretty.
Like I knew it was necessary. I knew it was valid. I love the company. I loved everything they were doing. But these testimonials that are pouring in, and I love that they're doing the video ones too. But I was like, holy shit! And then obviously we worked with them to put an article out about. It never really dawned on me, Wes, that the black market is so fucking advanced when it comes to their online ordering and their websites. Like some of these sites are so fucking sophisticated. You got to give them credit.
We've said it before. These people are not stupid. They're smart. They're smart people, and you know, they're just operating on the different side of things. And yeah, when they're not bound by the same restrictions and all that stuff. Yeah, their websites are extremely advanced in some cases for processing orders.
My buddy and I used to joke and say that you never hear about the smart criminals.
No, exactly.
You don't, right?
Yeah.
When you think about it. But how are you feeling today? Like, what are we talking here? We fever? We COVID? We fucking monkeypox?
I did some COVID tests. Definitely not COVID, but it feels like it. Like I remember the first time I got COVID back in 2020. It was just around Christmas, and I remember it felt like I was hit by a train, and it lasted for like 2 days, and then it was kind of gone for me. Kind of feels similar. I'm surprised it's not COVID. I did 2 tests, but same thing. It's not really stomach or anything. It's all head, super achy. But I mean, you sent me half the pharmacy yesterday.
I sent you a care pack. It wasn't full of cannabis. You get enough of that. But I'm like, you're like, do you have this? This is the influence of my wife, as usual, right? Natural healthcare products, huge believer. They work. I mean, I take what I can daily, but I do know when something is coming on. The kids are fucking cesspools, man. Like, they don't care. Like my oldest, she's out, she's sick. She's like trying to go to work. She's doing that. You remember at Ample, if someone came in sick, I'm like, I don't fucking think so. You know, the door you just came in, you go back out through it. You're going home. You're not infecting everyone. But kids, man, they just... no care in the world. Their immune systems are better. Obviously they catch it, but they just bounce back. They'll have their couple hours fucking coma sleep, and then they're all over the fucking place. And they're, wiping and doing this and touching taps and doorknobs. And as soon as there's sickness in my house, I run around with fucking Lysol. I've got to clear the germs out, but I up the D's and the B's and the C's and echinacea. And I had to make sure when I asked them, like, do you have any of this stuff? I knew what the answer was going to be. You're like, no, I got to go get some. I'm like, you ain't fucking going anywhere. Hang tight. And then all of a sudden, I think it was Instacart and Shoppers. Like,
yeah, no, I usually do the old school sweat it out model. That was my...
Don't suffer, man. You got to give your immune system what it needs to fucking get to where it needs to be. Ultimately. Anyways, I hope you're on the mend. We'll get through this not as quickly as possible. It's a very fucking relevant topic today. I won't go into it too much yet because we've got, hopefully he doesn't get mad at me, Dr. Shane Morris coming on today. He likes to ruffle feathers, man, and I don't blame him one bit.
Yeah, he's got some good tweets.
He's got some good tweets. Yeah. Listen, he's smart. He knows the industry. And he's Irish. He's not afraid to call a fucking spade a spade. And that doesn't sit well with some people. And I can't say that I fucking blame him. Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Anyways, I wanted to ask you this. We were so previously focused on the U.S. election with all the craziness going on. Have you been paying attention? And I made a vow, you recall, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago that I'm going to start paying more attention to the Canadian politics. I'm not a huge fan of the way that our voting goes. But anyway, so I've been paying a bit more attention. Did you catch the first day back in Parliament with Poilievre and Trudeau? Have you seen that video?
I don't know if I saw that. I saw the one where two members of the Liberal side really Conservative side tore into Freeland.
That was that.
I enjoyed that.
Who wouldn't enjoy that? I mean, oh fuck! Not only has she's come after so many things, including a very large investment I've made into a stash armory of certain. I'm not even going to say it on this podcast. We know where we're going with this. For those that know, pals and our pals, Canadians should be allowed to have them and access to what you are allowed to have under those pals and our pals. And for those that know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, no, I saw this video first day back in Parliament. And it was funny because someone made this fucking cut edit. Do you know, oh my God, American Psycho. What's the guy's name again? The new one. Bates. Not Bates. This fucking psycho. What's his name? He played Batman too.
Christian Bale.
Thank you, Christian Bale. Anyways, someone made this cut of Justin Trudeau in a side-by-side comparison video of when he's walking into the office and he's like just walking and then back shots. And it's like Trudeau. I'm not saying he tried to mimic the American Psycho, but the way he's walking in and his little, and then a back shot and walking off, I'm thinking, yeah, this is perfect. But anyways, what I wanted to say was, listen, I don't know who I'm voting for yet, but I can tell you who I'm not fucking voting for. Anyways, so it was first day back in Parliament, speakers, Poilievre, Trudeau. Poilievre fucking wiped the floor with Trudeau in a really, really, really bad but good way. Again, I'm not saying I am pro Poilievre. I'm not saying I'm pro anything at this point. I need to make a decision based on the information that's coming in. But I love the fact that Trudeau just got stomped hard. The guy is I do not agree with what he says.
Say what's on your mind.
The guy is fucking ruining this country, man. And he has. I admittedly voted for him when he was big on cannabis. He's going to legalize cannabis. And hey, I think a lot of us did. Unfortunately, I don't think we've seen the progress in that space that we need. And we know this, we talk about it all the time. But it's not just that. I mean, you're going to strip rights away from fucking Canadians the way you did. Get the fuck out of here. Like, just go, buddy.
I just think with him, and I think it's with Freeland as well, personally, when I see them talk, there's just a staunch arrogance to them that it's very, to me at least, I read it as it's just brushing off, especially when they're asked direct questions. A lot of it's very, like they don't have to answer directly. Yeah. It's just very, I don't know.
Oh, no,
they're not likable to me. They're not likable at all.
No, and it's not just like typical politicians where they, avoid the question and provide some sort of answer. It is literally this, like you say, this air of arrogance that's like, who are you? I don't answer to you. Like,
yeah,
fuckers, we pay your salaries, and fuck you with extending the election date. I don't care where it falls. You're not getting more fucking pension from us. Anyways. Yeah. These fucking criminals, as far as I'm concerned, it's just they need to go.
Unless I heard wrong, it could be as early as today that there's a call for non-confidence vote. Right? That's the last thing I heard. Is it today? Or as early as Wednesday, I think they said. Okay, so it should be today.
Well, and then this flip flop back and forth from the NDP is like, man, I'm trying to make sense of something that you'll never be able to make sense of. Like, that's, I think, the definition of insanity, other than doing the same thing and expecting a different result. But I don't know. I'm going to continue to pay more attention to it. And admittedly, here's the thing, growing up, even in my generation, we weren't taught enough about politics to understand how it truly functions. This is something that you have to take on yourself to understand and study and know. Like, when you look across all the different provinces and regions across Canada, it's clear that the Liberals only got a minority government because of the large city centers, like those large urban hubs. That's the only reason. And I don't know if that is right, is wrong. I don't know enough about it. Again, it wasn't something like when you were, you came up a little bit after me. Were politics even a topic of consideration?
I don't remember. Again, I had my few interesting topics in school where I was like, everything else is boring to me, and then there was a couple of things. So I honestly don't remember learning as much about politics as I feel we should have. I remember spending an inordinate amount of time on, well, it's important, but I remember spending a lot of time on Canadian history, right?
Sure.
Learning about the Hudson's Bay Company, all that stuff. But as far as modern politics within Canada goes, I don't remember learning as much as I feel we should have, personally.
I still don't think, I think there is, they tread into it carefully, I think, but I got really mad. I think it was last year when one of Ashton's teachers, it might've been a civics course. I'm not sure what it was, but they were so pro Trudeau. They had his picture up all over the classroom, and the assignments coming in. And I'm like, Ashton, you need to form your own opinions here, but you need to understand what's going on as well. But I was just getting irate with, he was submitting some projects coming back where he was in opposition. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm going into the school. Like, I'm getting mad. He's like, no, don't do that. My grade's already, you do that, I'm going to be in trouble. So anyways, I left it. But news. Let's talk about some interesting news. Obviously, we go over to StratCan. It's the best way for us to keep up to date. Did you see that Aurora has gotten a patent on autoflowering? I don't want to say autoflowers, okay? And I'm going to ask you if you know what autoflowering is too. But autoflowering, or the process to develop autoflowering genetics. And in this article in StratCan, I did not realize that Aurora also holds, it's not patents, it's 19 other, something to do with various cultivar. But anyways, when I saw it originally, I saw the headline, I'm like, oh fuck, this is a slippery slope. Like, to me, this is the signal, and I'm not poo-pooing on Aurora. It's funny enough, Shane Morris was previously with Aurora as their chief product officer or innovation officer. We'll have to clarify that. But so let me ask this first. Let's start with this. I'm sure the vast majority of our audience understand this. Maybe. Do you understand what autoflowering is?
No, I've heard the term a lot. I'm not educated on that.
So autoflowering is a plant, and it's not just in cannabis, but it is a plant that will produce fruit or flower without the change of a light cycle. It's based on age or how mature a plant is. They achieve this, at least in cannabis, or it was achieved, and I'm sure anyone that wants to correct me can, because I could be slightly off. Maybe Ryan Lee would correct me. But anyways, they would breed your typical cannabis sativa with ruderalis, okay, or I think that's how you say it properly. But and ruderalis is part of the cannabis species, but it has those properties that would autoflower. So they would cross it with THC dominant, CBD dominant cultivar in order to create this autoflower. And what happened? And I've actually grown it before. And the ones that I had dwarf autoflowers, I think, but just to fuck with them and see what it would do. So it didn't matter. So in typical cultivation, you'll flip your light cycle, right? So in vegetation, you may be running anywhere 14, 16 hour, 18 hour light cycle, depends. And then once you're getting to your markers, right, depending on how big you want them, how much stretch you want them bushy, shorter, whatever, you're defoliating or along the time, usually typically towards into the flower, but you'll flip your light cycle so that it's 12-12, a minimum of 12-12. And that signals to the plant, it's almost like mimicking outdoor. It's fall, the seasons are changing. It's a shorter light cycle. I need to start producing flower. And that's typically how your flower buds. But in an autoflower, doesn't matter. You can have your lights on 24/7 and they will. Now, I don't suggest that. They're going to fuck your plants up and they're going to stress right out, probably end up with Hermes. But you don't have to flip your light cycle. So it's a little bit easier because you don't have to. I shouldn't say easy. I got to be careful with that easy word. I get fucking slaughtered on that sometimes. So a little bit more forgiving when it comes to this plant, right? These autoflowers, and usually less yield as well. Potencies are, I'm not even going to go into potencies, but regardless, it's something that you would reserve for outdoor potentially at larger scale. At least that's what Aurora is looking at. But when I saw this, it just, I don't know. I'd love to hear from our audience on this and what people's thoughts are. Does this pave a way or create this slippery slope where we see things like we see? And I'm not saying Aurora is Monsanto, but in the world of Monsanto, they have patents on seeds. So, growing in nature, farmers got, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 acres of a certain, let's say they have Monsanto seed. They will pollinate at some point in time. The winds will blow, and that pollination will crossbreed certain plants in other farmer fields or neighboring fields. And if you're caught with the seed that is produced from that, because now you're going to produce that patented seed out of that product, be it wheat, be it corn, whatever it might be, they could sue you. And they have sued farmers before. And it got to so bad to the point where farmers were washing their seed, right? Which was fucking crazy. But I'm curious, like, if this continues, because Aurora is very advanced when it comes to innovation. I can't remember. There was another company that did something a couple years back. It was cool. But
let me ask you quick. So this patent, even after reading this article, I'm still slightly confused. So is this patent on a specific process, or is it on specific cultivars that have gone through this process?
I think it's on the so when it comes to the autoflowering, I think it's on the process to create a specific autoflower cultivar.
Okay,
I think we do need to clarify, but then because where it's confusing, not saying the article is confusing, it's just the way I read it as well. Because Aurora holds, it's not patents, it's another term, something on. There's like 19 different, like they've got like, it's like Pink Kush 71 or something like that. I remember there was a couple different ones early on where they were talking about it. And they are their cultivars, right? In the world of cannabis, I think it gets very difficult, one, to prove. But I think you would have to see another front runner, another company being very successful. They maybe start talking a little bit about they're using autoflower, and then maybe Aurora's interest peaks in that, and they're like, oh well, hold on, what are you using? How did you get it? I don't know. I just feel this because of the alcohol wasn't a community, it wasn't a culture. So prohibition leading in, et cetera. I mean, there's culture around it, don't get me wrong. But not like cannabis, the historical cultural value that cannabis holds. I just feel that this is really going to piss people off. I think so. I mean, I don't have any, horses in this race, right? But I don't know. I'd love to hear what Ryan Lee thinks. I really would. In this case, I would love to hear what Ryan thinks, and how they even go about doing it. But then how do you stake claim to it as well? Right. Like, I don't know. I don't know. We need more information.
I'm also curious into more like, so if this cultivar specifically, whatever, one of these 19 is off limits now, right? And it's Aurora only. What else needs to happen to make that no longer off limits, right? Like, is there a minor genetic change
I think they, like, and that's the thing. Like, you can get so much change in genetic drift, based on the nutrient regime. Fuck, your IPM can change it sometimes, your lighting. So, there's so many, right? There's just so many factors that can alter, especially if you're doing cyclical cloning of any sort, or your mother room is affected. Micropropagation, maybe not. I don't know. But again, your point is valid in how much needs to change. But I think it comes down to sourcing it as well.
Yeah. Here's the other thing in that article that kind of leans me on one side more than the other, is the fact that, okay, Aurora's doing this, making these cultivars. It's one thing, in my opinion, to make these cultivars for yourself, and Aurora's producing these cultivars. But the whole fact that they're now creating these cultivars and then simply just licensing them out to other LPs for a fee. Mm-hmm. I don't know. To me, that just feels like,
Yeah.
At one point, Aurora could just stop producing completely, just be on the genetic side, creating these cultivars and licensing. And then,
Yeah.
I don't know, it feels a little,
Well,
again, going back to the community and everything and the culture of all this stuff, like it does feel like a bit of a kick in the nuts, honestly, when I read this.
I mean, if you have a winning genetic, and I mean, like, go to horse racing, right? Like some of these studs are fucking millions of dollars just to have sex with your right. Like stud services are millions.
We're talking after eighth from VCC. That's what we're talking.
Right. But I mean, in the world of cannabis, there are so many cultivars, and it's, you can accidentally get new cultivars. You get a male somewhere, or you purposely do it. I saw a really cool video of Genevieve Newton doing some crossbreeding with some outdoors. It was kind of cool, just personal. But anyways, I found it. I find this again. You'd have to have. We get maximum yield. We get maximum potency, maximum terpenes. We get this, and it's almost a guarantee. Now, I will say this. In Europe, especially in Spain, the University of Valencia, they've been doing a ton of research on this. And they have, I don't want to say this because I'm not an expert, but I think it's genome sequenced certain cultivar, the original land races. And they are mutating these original cultivars to be able to survive and thrive in certain regions throughout Europe, whether it's indoor, outdoor, and their model is to license this, and they will take a cut. They give you the whole recipe, your lighting recipe, your nutrient recipe, everything you need, and they will license it to you. They will provide you with the genetics, and they get a cut at the end of the day. So they're getting a royalty almost. But I don't know, in Canada, I don't even know how many fucking different genetics there are. There must be, with the opening of the Cannabis Act, and even prior to, there was already a unlimited supply of different cultivar strains, like just anything you could think of. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And it's difficult because now you've got certain individuals, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but they'll crossbreed specific and then they'll rename it, which they have every right to, but sometimes they'll just blend and they call it something. Which confuses the consumer sometimes because they may see whatever the new name is, not realizing what the lineage is because it wasn't necessarily put on the package. And then all of a sudden you start, and this is some of the issues I had with Leafly in the early days, which was some of these new ones, right? Like Bruce Banner number 3, I think it was. I can't remember what it was. It was Strawberry Coffin, something like that. And, it was this new created cultivar name, and it just started creating a ton of confusion, right? Leafly, on the Leafly side. And then you get into, well, is it, bless you, is it, produced by this company versus this company? Or is that, who is the breeder? Who are the seed providers, genetic banks? I don't fucking know. You can go on forever with this, and I think we need to circle back with Ryan and ask if we can get him on the show, because I mean, it's just so accomplished, and smart, just fucking smart, man. Anyways, I'm excited about today, but I'm also frustrated. I've had multiple calls this week, and I think I'd said this to you earlier. It's almost like the universe is serving me what I need in preparation of today's show. But also, I think, frustrating me beyond all belief. So, we're going to talk to Shane. We're going to talk about, his history, Health Canada work, Aurora work, and everything he's been doing since. But we're also going to wade into the world of cannabis healthcare products, or cannabis health products, and try to understand, because there's been no fucking movement, even though he's leading the coalition. It's not his fault. It's Health Canada has basically closed the door. We need to know more about that. But in this world, you've got the CHFA happening this week, huge event in Toronto, which is the Canadian Health Food Association, but also natural healthcare products. It's fucking massive. It's one of the biggest expos you could imagine, and it's at the X. And you've got all these CBD. I've said this a million times. I get sent a CBD product and emblazoned fucking huge THC logo on it, and it drives me fucking bonkers. And three different companies have reached out this week, or I've interacted with, and I go on this fucking rant about how Health Canada needs to change it. I get why it was regulated. It still needs to be regulated. It needs to be tested. But, all of these companies, amazing companies, I could go through a myriad of companies, You Feel You, Naturally Nutra, Madge Mercer, Wildwood Labs. I could just keep going and going and going. Incredible people, just fucking awesome people trying to do their best to put incredible products, and they are incredible. Stewart Farms even putting incredible products out, and their products being because we can't say wellness. Ooh, God forbid we fucking say wellness. Hello. We can't say wellness. We can't say it treats this. We can't say it does this. It doesn't help this, doesn't help that. And those have to go into the same dispensaries, if not a medical channel, which I think they all need to be on medical channels, number one. But they go into dispensaries. If it's a capsule, it's sold beside THC capsules. Well, we know the vast majority of individuals looking for CBD for relief of certain symptoms, whatever those symptoms are being caused from, are not necessarily going to a dispensary. Those that are in the industry that are also consumers, they'll know, oh yeah, well, you get CBD, you got to get it from a dispensary. But I'm talking, sports people, right? Sports people, is that even the way you say it? But sports, for sports recovery, for the senior demographic, for it's not even the senior demographic. I'm talking individuals, professional individuals that have never had really much to do with the industry. These individuals are not thinking, I need to go to a dispensary to get it. But instead, they're being bamboozled and fooled because they go to these health stores and they have a CB2 or CBD product, which are not fucking CBD products. Okay. They are not CBD. They are hemp seed oil derived. I'm not even going to say CBD2 or sorry, CBD2, CBD. They are not. So Health Canada, get the fuck off your ass and do something, because this is getting out of control. It really is. Those products don't necessarily need to be tested when they're at the health stores, the health food stores, health stores in general.
Yeah.
The individuals that are working there, including my wife, are super educated. They understand health. They would need to bone up and brush up and take, certain courses to understand the effects of CBD, the entourage effect, accompanying what the fuck am I saying?
Cannabinoids?
Cannabinoids. Holy fuck. I just had a complete brain fart there.
Come on, man. You used to train me on this stuff.
I know, but I'm just like, but anyways, they need to be trained. But they can speak to this better. And I'm not saying bud tenders can't. They can too. But holy shit, how much do you want to put on a bud tender? Like, they already need to learn fucking at minimum 150 SKUs. Right. And there's no way they can keep all that information in their head. So, and that's at minimum. But we know the vast majority of these retail locations, dispensaries, are carrying 400 to 500 plus SKUs. So it's doing them a disservice. It's doing the public or the consumers a disservice. And least of not, it's the fucking companies. Like, they're struggling, right? Because they can get the distribution in some cases. These dispensaries want to support them. The demographic that's shopping them are not, it's a very small margin of those individuals going to these dispensaries to find these products. So if you're a CBD product or a producer, processor, your product should be on a medical channel as well, at least for the interim, right? We need a solution. I'm hoping that Shane and his efforts, they'll be able to do it. Well, I'm sure I'll get into this again. But as I'm talking to these companies this week, Wes, I'm just, I'm passionate about this. I get so angry because there's no reason that Health Canada can't open the fucking recommendations and just make a ruling on it, like something.
Well, I was going to ask, do you think it's more, I don't think it's that they're not listening. I think it's more, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel there's probably some lobbying efforts happening here to either slow or prevent.
Okay, but
like,
totally. If you start looking at the big pharma side of things and what's going on, yeah, potentially. But I mean, it's no different than, well, don't get me wrong. Like, our natural healthcare products have been under attack in Canada for some time now. They want them gone. Now, did you hear that? Gone. So access to the care package I sent you yesterday? No prescriptions, buddy. Oh, you want to do, and that drives me insane too, right? And I won't go there. We've got Dr. Ira Price coming on the show in a few weeks, so we'll talk to him about that stuff. But there's lobbying, 100%, but fuck the lobbying for a second and look at, the market potential. I think right now it's just south of the CBD or the cannabis health side of things is just south of like 45 million, with an opportunity, if you open it up, I think it's within 5 years, it could be 2 billion. How fucking short-sighted is the government? Listen, regulators, if any of you tune into this and you want to join us to explain why the fuck we are not making progress on this, it's an open invitation. I will bump guests around to have you come on. Like, okay. Perfect. Anyways, now I need coffee. God damn it. Fucking all worked up. I had a really nice message from Keith Bayo this morning. I've been thinking about him a lot.
I enjoyed our meeting with him. What a genuine, really nice guy.
He's the best. We are so fucking fortunate to be surrounded by such incredible individuals. But anyways, I was funny because, again, this is the way the universe works. Criticize me all you want, people, but I know the way it works. And I was thinking about this morning. I've switched my routines. I'm now doing yoga. I get into meditation, being grateful and thankful. And I was thinking about Keith, and we know the story, and I'm not going to air that publicly, but anyways, thinking about him, wondering how he's doing. As he's okay, people. But and I was just thinking of it, and then I get over to LinkedIn just before we're ready to hit the studio, and there's this beautiful message from him. And he's just a fucking awesome guy. I love him. And he's not the only one. We've got so many incredible individuals that are supportive, but we can just lean on, right? If we need advice, need support, great people. Anyways, let's get Shane on. Let's get Shane. Let's fucking rock the boat today, baby. Anyways, we'll be right back after this break.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Dr. Shane Morris. Shane, he's fucking doing it already. Shane, first of all, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on. And just officially, doctor is, no one calls me doctor. My kids don't even call me doctor. They just laugh at me.
Well, let me see if my memory serves me, because it was quite some time since we were together. I think we were living it up in an Edmonton airport bar. But there was, at that point in time, you said, the only person that calls me doctor is my brother, and he does it because he fucking drives me insane.
Yeah, and he's a doctor too. Oh. That's the problem. Yeah. So when they say Dr. Morris, you're referring to my brother. So and I have three younger brothers. So there's healthy competition of taking that goes on an ongoing basis.
Listen, it's a good accolade. It as much as you don't want to be referred to it, you are at the end of the day, man. That's just the way it is.
You know what PhD stands for, don't you?
Well, let's hear your interpretation, because I've heard it a few different ways.
Yeah. Piled higher and deeper.
Piled higher and deeper. Okay. All right. Yeah, I've heard it some different ways, but I appreciate that, and we appreciate you joining Legacies. It's been a work. We're finally here.
Yeah, it's been hard to connect for sure. I think everyone's very busy, and I really enjoy your platform and what you're doing and the conversations, and it's great to be part of it.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. Let's get. You like to ruffle feathers. We were just having some little pre-convo about ruffling feathers. I mean, I don't know if you necessarily do it on purpose. You just speak truths, and some people don't like truths.
Well, I think so. I think there's a bit of a cultural thing here as well. Like, I come from a culture where there's no argument. You're in an argument when someone is bleeding. Everything up to that point is a robust conversation,
right?
And I certainly never play the person. I play the ball, right. And sometimes you can have these conversations. You have to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right? So from that perspective, I like to have conversations that are robust, evidence-based, and we can all learn from one another in such conversations. If we're all just pretending to be nice to each other, not that that's a Canadian way, but if we're not being true to ourselves, we can't be true to the industry.
Yeah, I 100% agree and support that. And I think we've come to the point now with so much, again, early days to where we are now, that we need to start having these conversations. We need to be very real about the situation we're in. And we're going to get to, because, earlier I was buzzed right up. I was just, talking about CBD products and, outreach from 3 different companies this week. I've had 3 different conversations. My wife will be at the CHFA this week, coming up in Toronto, which is huge.
Massive. I was supposed to be there tomorrow at the regulatory. I won't make it because I've got work, but
yeah. And that's like, so We'll get there. I'm going to calm down for a second because this really lights me up. Let's first go back. If I understand it correctly, Shane, you were originally with Health Canada, not necessarily in cannabis, but correct me if I'm wrong. And then you made way over to Aurora. Let's start there.
Well, actually, I was originally with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
Oh, okay.
That's where
Right.
I came from. Now they do report into the Minister of Health now. And then I moved to Agriculture Canada. So technically, I was involved in inspection operations and enforcement and wonderful things like BSE and avian influenza, and it was learned a lot on the front lines. And then I went over to Agriculture Canada, did a lot of policy work, really around regulatory policy with them. And my area of expertise is where the science meets the policy, and very often that's around risk and regulation. Because you can't have a policy conversation unless you have a scientific conversation, and the output is usually regulatory. So then I did some time with Public Health Agency. I set up their one of their regulatory programs, even had security clearance elements to it as well. So I became very familiar with security clearance processes. And then I went over to Treasury Board for a second stint and PCO, Privy Council. And there I had a great opportunity to do a lot of regulatory policy work. So what would happen is when new regulations were made, they'd be brought to Cabinet. But normally it's not the minister that presents the regulations to Cabinet, it's the Cabinet's team. So in this case, Privy Council. So for example, say Health Canada wanted new allergen label regulations. They would do all the work on the regulatory policy, they do the consultations, and then when they were ready to make the regulations, they would actually bring it to Cabinet. But Health Canada would never present it. It would be my team. Okay. So we would actually do a challenge function back to Health Canada and say, tell me about these regulations. How are they made? We'd research all the opposition to it. We'd understand it. So we could brief the ministers who are in Cabinet, who weren't just the Minister of Health. And we did this for every regulation from species at risk to marine regulations. So it's a pretty big team, and every 2 weeks they bring new regulatory amendments from across the government, all departments, and they bring it to Cabinet, and the Cabinet makes a decision. Wow. And so it was a great experience, and it was a real honor to sit in the Cabinet room when I had to, and to be that close to the decision making. But you learn a lot, and our official role was to play a challenge function to the regulators.
Okay.
So I got very comfortable.
So this is where it comes from. Okay.
Yeah. So, I'm quite versed in regulatory policy, regulatory instrument choice, how regulations are made, how regulatory impact assessments are made, all the elements that go into decision making around regulations, enforcement areas, etc. So, the skill and the art of making regulations is a bit like growing cannabis, right? There's some science, there's some art, there's passion, there's an understanding of what went before and where you want to get to. Right. So it's a bit of a niche. I'm a bit of a geek, to be honest. So it's from my background, it came from there, and then I went over to NRCan under the Conservatives, and they were trying to change and streamline all the regulations around environmental protection and major resource projects. So mines, pipelines, all the issues. So I did that. And one day, I was watching out of the corner of my eye this whole plant regulations and cannabis plants and what they were doing with MMPR back there and what was going on in that front. And one day, one of my staff turned around, and we were in a meeting together, and she got a call, and she stepped out, she took it, and I heard this very irate, upset person on the other end of the phone. We didn't have big offices or anything, so on the other side of the cubicle, essentially. And she came back in and said, "You okay?" And she said, "Well, My husband's starting a cannabis company, and he can't get his license, and he doesn't understand what's going on. He's got a cute. Do you know anyone with like a quality background and in plants and PhD? And I go, yeah, that would be me. So tell your husband to give me a call, and we'll chat. We'll go for a coffee, and that's what happened. And
Wow.
so that was Sebastian St. Louis, and he was the CEO of Hydropothecary at the time.
Yeah.
So just as a favor, we chatted, and when they got their license, he brought me on, and we did a lot out of the first Hexo Hydropothecary site in Gatineau, and we stood up all the quality. This was 2015. So I took a leave of absence, and I was one of these weird people who was actually still on pensionable time with government, but I was working in cannabis. And I remember at the time having to apply for the leave to my boss, and she was married at the time to the commissioner of the RCMP. And
reason for leaving.
And she looked at me and she went, "Shane, are you sure you want, like, you're an executive in government, you're doing great things, you've done great things, do you want to step out and do this?" And I go, "Yeah, I absolutely do." And because I'm a plant guy, like my PhD is in plant science. I love plants, and this was a once in a lifetime opportunity to try something. And at that time, it was all just medical. This was like 2015. The idea of Justin Trudeau even being Prime Minister wasn't even on the radar.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Then I went and did it. Some people call it a midlife crisis, to do something like so 180 degrees.
Right.
But it was building something, and even in government, I was always building something. I was always at trying to move and things, and trying to develop things. Teams.
What was the strongest draw, though, Shane? I mean, you talked about being a geek and coming from the understanding of plants and plant science, but was there more to it than that? Was there the uptick opportunity? You can help an industry, fledgling industry, get off the ground. You saw complications because I was an MMAR guy that, never transitioned to the MMPR or the Cannabis Act. I just held that real close to myself and said, no way, no one's getting this. But what drew you the most? What was it?
I really think it was the fact that there was such horrible implications for people who had a need for access to, at the time, medical cannabis. That a legalized regulatory framework that would allow access for me, and I knew some people who needed it. In Ottawa, there's a big veteran community, and it was just like the impact that I was having on people. At the end of the day, it's about the people and the plants, and it was just bizarre. And as a scientist, I understood the risks, and I understood, where it's, from a public health perspective, where it stands against something like alcohol, and where it stands in the other drug kind of comparisons. And for me, I thought it was a real opportunity, because people were, their lives were being ruined in relation to, if you had found with a small amount of cannabis around a campfire with your friends, you were suddenly, your future employment was at risk, your travel around the world was at risk, your kids potentially were at risk. It made no sense. And, again, a geek, risk versus, hazard, exposure, and risk, it didn't make any sense. So it was an opportunity for me. And again, I got in even before legalization was like, our business
wasn't
plan
even a thought at the time. We weren't thinking that. 2000, no. I think my MMAR was 11 or 12. And then I remember 2015, and then I remember the shift over to the ACMPR. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And that was right around the time Mr. Trudeau is entering the scene, and he's getting big on cannabis, and he's going to legalize it. And this drama school teacher out of the blue is here to save the day. But so much work was already being done that he just capitalized on it.
Yeah. And it was interesting, because in our in the sheds that we were at over at Hydropothecary at the time, the idea of legalization and a record, that was like, those discussions were 10 years, 20
Yeah.
years, maybe someday, not here. And we were just kind of trying to build good quality medical products that, would speak to the need that people had at the time. And honestly, I think anyone who tells you that they saw this coming as quick as it was lying to you, because I was in the rooms with, early days, all the people who had licenses, and even the regulators didn't even know it was coming. They were more, when they got to go to like, okay, we're going to do adult use rec, like they were calling me going, Shane, is this even possible? How is this going to work?
So and how did that come about though? Like where did that urgency, because it was like, was it 2017, October 17th, 18th, 2017, and then bam, all of a sudden a year later, we're going adult use. And again, no one had a crystal ball. No one even was thinking that at the time. We were still trying to understand. I remember being at Ample, and we were still just trying to figure out medical, like in how to service all the medical providers going, okay. And then all of a sudden they drop on us, we're going adult use and reporting on columns, and, Cannabis 2.0 became even a bigger crisis. But where was the urgency?
Well, I think honestly, it became, having deep roots in Ottawa, one of the things that the Trudeau government came in with was a concept of deliverology. Right, this is where you take your mandate, or you take your proposals that you got elected, and you say, okay, we're going to track on how these are delivered, and we're going to design the public service around delivering these. We're going to set timelines, and good, real kind of imagine project management at a macro policy level.
Okay.
They actually brought a guy in from Ontario, the Ontario government, to help with this, and they set up a team centrally, and they were reporting on measuring and doing all this work early days. And cannabis was one of those things that was one of those early election promises. It was in their platform, and it was part of the deliverology program, right? And they drove it. And I have to say that I fight with Health Canada all the time, but I have tremendous respect for everybody over there who goes and does the right thing every day, and goes on and works hard and tries to do the heavy lifting, because this was very complex. No one had done this, and I can list off the names of bureaucrats. Eric Costin is a great one. There's Lindsay, there's a whole list of them that were doing all-nighters, and then there was there was the policy piece, and then there was the whole regulatory structure piece, right? Because to write regulations, you need drafters who go around in pairs, French and English. They're attached at the hips, and they go to meetings together, French and English, and they're just to write regulatory text.
Yeah, well, I've said this before. I know, like, I come down hard on Health Canada. I always have, but at the same time, on the other side of that, I'll always say, listen, I'm not an idiot. I understand the amount of work, the effort it took. I don't know if any other country could have done it as quickly as Canada did do it. Was it right out of the gate? Well, maybe not. Nothing is.
Nothing is.
Look at the airplane and the aviation industry. I mean, that was a fucking mess out of the gate. But, we start looking at, okay, as you're adding context to this, I'm like, oh my God, I've never thought about that. There's certain aspects of this, but we do need to give them credit where credit is due, which is they were working their asses off to get us some sort of framework and get it regulated and approved. That we give them. But and we'll get into this, we're this far in now. Are you sleeping? Like, what's going on? So anyways, you're talking about French and English running around at the hip, going all these meetings. Like, that wouldn't even dawn on me.
Yeah. And they're just the guys who are writing the text. Right. And, but the flip side to that was, and I've seen this happen, the same guy who was brought in from Ontario to run the virology was at a meeting, and I was in the room, and he was asked about cannabis, and he actually said, these people, the cannabis industry, should be very happy. We've given them something. They should just be delighted that it's ready to go and it's done and they've got it, something that no one else has. So there's a risk there where they think it's a done deal, right? And and the problem is that it was hot internally in Ottawa to get it done. And a lot of people, it looks great on their resumes, and they did the heavy lifting. But now there's a structure, and there's about 400 people at Health Canada, and related. If you count up everybody in the Cannabis Directorate, and there's a lot of FTEs, we call them full-time equivalents, right? And it's kind of settled into the he-ho of kind of like average regulation. So it's whether it's food, natural health products, and some of the, I would say, the ace players are not there anymore. Some are. There's some really great people in Health Canada, and if you work with them and you're evidence-based and you understand how they work and what their pressures are internally, you can still do great things. But there is a risk of, at a certain level, people feeling, well, we did cannabis, it's over, it's good, put it back on the shelf. Now it will just run like a normal thing, which is slow. Right. But what happens is, it's like when you have a child, right? The first couple of years of child development are way more important than, I would argue, the last set of child development. For sure. So the same thing should be happening on regulatory policy, because of course you didn't get it anywhere near, right? You've got a lot of learning, you've got a lot of changes, and you need to be able to evolve quickly from what you're learning in the environment you're working in. And I just feel that was a missed opportunity.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it does feel like the box was put on the shelf and it was, it's just gathering dust at this point. And I know that's, sorry, I know we know Health Canada individuals tune in, but that's what it feels like for those operating in the industry, especially individuals like yourself that have been so close to it. I mean, you work with clients daily that you're still up against these challenges. So you enter.
I'm still making observations disappear.
Right. And for individuals that are not aware what an observation is, please explain that.
So what you can happen is when you get inspected, and the inspections have come a long way, and you have Health Canada who are turning up, and more than normal now. It
seems like a lot. Yeah, it does seem like a lot.
Well, there's a couple of things. So Health Canada has an entire section called ROBE. It's like a regulatory operational side, and they have inspectors that are assigned to like just regulatory operations, and they're designated by the minister, and they're inspectors, and they have a badge and everything. It's pretty cool. And because if you're a geek like me, that's cool. And
it's like Dragnet.
No, it's true. They ask, and they will do the inspection on behalf of Health Canada.
Right.
These are not the same people that are doing the policy work or doing the CTLS management or doing the so it's a bit of a challenge because it's, they don't always talk to each other, and there's resource issues. One is funded centrally, one is not, one is funded from a different internal budget. So, Health Canada is still working together to knit together that program, because there's, they're leveraging pre-existing systems. So what is an observation? So if Health Canada turns up, now thankfully it's usually announced, and it's at one stage when we were in 2015, 2016, every month, non-announced, they'd be coming, and they were counting plants. Like now they physically can't count the plants anymore, right? They would spend 3 hours counting plants.
I'm laughing because I remember the shock and awe tactics too, as well as it almost felt, where the hell was I? I was somewhere when they showed up unannounced. It might have been one of the Aurora facilities, actually.
Always.
But it felt to me when that happened, it felt like I was still in the black market going, what the fuck is going on? The cops are here.
So we had programs, like we used to talk about, we had a tiger team. So when they showed up unannounced, and literally it was once a month. The first year I was there, I had 10 inspections at Hydropothecary, which were more in-depth than the guys who are making opiates, who were once every year, right? Like on my resume, I have more inspections in 1 year than they would have in their career in 10 years for sure, because they were once every 2 years at that point. So it was, and they were learning. look, I took the time to position the hydropothecary site. We were 20 minutes from Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
We had everybody visit. Everybody
Oh,
in
so
Ottawa.
close. Yeah.
Like they would come out for the afternoon. It was CRA, it was politician. It was basically a sample site, right? That we'd have people in buses coming.
Not the greatest location to start in.
No, but it was people who were so close, and they were really fascinated, and they learned a lot because MMPR, ACMPR, they learned a lot. They're going like, oh, you mean you don't need lasers underneath the table? Like that doesn't make any sense, like on the plant side. And we actually took some time, and one of the things we did in the industry very early on, and we realized that the inspections was just madness, and they were quite frankly not understanding, this new industry, because these inspectors we had, because we were in Quebec, they were. I don't know if you've ever been to Montreal. It's a big pharma industry. Mm-hmm. They do injectables. It's really high-end, EU GMP, sterile environments. The same inspectors would come out of a Merck injectable factory and then come visit us in a greenhouse. They lost their minds. They couldn't get their head around. So there was a lot of education on that basis, and it was two-way education, and there was a lot of debate. And what we realized, there was inconsistency across the country. So when I got on the phone, I got on, and you'd see it a lot. Like all of a sudden, you'd have in Ample, you'd have people asking for things that on one side of the country that the other side of the country were not asking.
It was
for.
Constant. It was constant. And I'm like, what are they doing? Especially David. I love David Hyde. But when he started with the security, he was fucking killing us because, you'd hear they weren't talking. So as you say, these departments weren't necessarily talking.
Well, they're actually regions. They're regions within Health Canada.
Right. But it was almost like they were just flying by the seat of their pants. So the standard was this in the regs, and inspector in the Maritimes may visit and go, okay, yeah, 8-foot fence. Good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then someone calls in from the West Coast, goes, well, so-and-so has a 12-foot fence. Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe it should be a 12-foot fence.
It's exactly. The classic case was this kitty litter for destruction. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that.
The kitty litter industry made a bloody fortune because I don't know how it got. Someone started using it, and then it became like. So what we did as a group, very early QAPs, we got on a call every 2 weeks ago. Tell us about your inspection, guys. What happened? How did it go down? Who said what? What did they want? They're nuts. Like for example, in BC. They wanted metal tables, and out west, Alberta and BC, they wanted like metal. We were using cinder blocks and pallets, right? And it was fine. So when I got on a call and they were hearing like, oh, they wanted lasers underneath the table, I go, no, that's
what the fuck for?
So we started working together, and then, so when they come and they ask for crazy stuff, we go, no, because Shane Morris's operation over at Hydropothecary has cinder blocks and pallets, and they're fine. So no, we're not doing washing our tables every day. Which at one point,
I find that so as crazy it is, and we can joke about it, there was some good air quote standards that came out of this practice, right? This unknown, certain companies, operators, individuals, even setting the bar a little bit higher to just add a little bit more. I don't know, medical feel to it. I don't even know how to put it. It wasn't. You know what I mean? Like it's
crazy. Well, what's crazy now is if you step back and go, oh, we do outdoor grows.
Yeah, I know. I remember I was still,
which is great. I'm a big fan. I
was still at Ample Shane when Jacob. So Loretta, if you recall, she had introduced me to Jacob. Jacob called me. He's like, I hear you understand, outdoor agriculture and cannabis and this. And I'm like, you're nuts. I said, everyone's going to want it. I said, there was issues with filtration. You talk about pollination and the broadcasting and all of that going on, and filtration systems. They, now you're putting in jeopardy indoor grows. I said, not to mention pesticide use, herbicides. I said, you're going to have it scheduled right now. And mark my words, Jacob, in 3, 4, 5 years, they're going to come to you and say, we can't have a successful crop outdoor. We need you to change it. And sure as shit, this year they did it.
Yeah.
They're fighting against it, right? So I remember the outdoor grow situation, but it was like everything, right? There was so many, and there's still so much room for improvement. But let me bring you back before I forget. Observation is during inspection. So I'll let you take it from there.
Observation is when Health Canada comes in and they see something that, on their opinion of the inspector, who's designated under the minister, that you're not in compliance.
Right. And those observations, they get reported. And I want you to clarify something for us in the audience, is that just because there's an observation doesn't mean there's a failure at the facility necessarily, right?
Absolutely.
And in most cases, not the case, I think.
Well, first of all, it's the opinion of that one individual inspector.
Yeah.
And he or she may be reading a regulation and interpreting it. Now, early days, there was very little guidance. I remember the first day I saw inspectors open up their own internal guidance in front of me. I go, can I have a copy of that, please? And they went, no, you cannot have a copy of this. I go, yes, I can. I'm a taxpayer. That's printed on my paper. I can have a copy of it. No, we can't give it to you. They left. Within 30 seconds, I had access to information. And within a week and a half, I had the document in my hand.
Wow.
And when they came back the next month, I was flipping with them, going, no, that's
where'd you get that?
That's exactly what I got to go. Yeah. I own it. I'm the taxpayer. You are the public servant. So let's get down to this and understand what's going on. So very often what can happen is there can be an interpretation or they might feel certain things are a certain way and they shouldn't be that way. It's not always clear cut. So then normally what you get some time to respond to the observation, and there's a back and forth, and it's a healthy back and forth. And they like to say, please respond to this in 10 days. Actually, there's no requirement in the regulations to respond in 10 days. And some observations were even so funny. Like I remember at one stage we were really busy, and on our license it said you had to give a report to Health Canada monthly, and you loved the monthly reports because it was Ample's bread and butter, right? In relation to getting you had to have it on the 15th of every month.
Right.
And I don't know what happened. I think I had to put down my dog, and I had young children, and I didn't get the report in time. And I think it was the next day. So all of a sudden, next inspection, I have an observation. You should have had that report in. And it was the only one I had.
Right.
Everything else was good. This is all they threw at me. And I wanted a clean inspection report.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to fight this. And having understood how regulations are made and evolved, I was able to say, in your license, what you put on your license must reflect the power in the regulation. So if they say we want it on the 15th of November, they wanted it for their own reasons. There was nothing in the regulations to say you needed to have a monthly report. I could have had it on the 20th.
Yeah.
I could have had it. So I wrote back and I had this like really boring essay that this is ultra virus. Doesn't go again. Like this is the Standing Joint Committee of Regulation, which is the parliamentary review. Standing Joint Committee on Regulatory Review has dealt with this issue before in 284, 92. All of a sudden the observation disappears. Well, guess what happened? I think it was ACMPR or it was the next version. They amended the regulations, and there it is today.
Oh my God.
It's right there on the 15th. You have to. So they call it the Morris Amendment in QA world.
Oh yeah. Congratulations on that. Yeah. Now our audience knows where that comes from. The 15th. Yeah.
Well, they were still trying to do it beforehand.
They were trying to do it. They just your essay set it in stone.
Yes.
Okay.
So that observations can be very stressful.
It sounds like there's a big business to be had there, though, in observations. Like I'm just thinking about. And it's not even sophistication. I don't want to say that because sometimes it's just time management and there's so few people with so much to do. You get an observation during an inspection. I mean, for some younger companies, this would feel like the end of the world almost.
Yes, it does. And it feels for some QAPs as well. And so for some management to look at like CEOs and the board, and they look at observations and they think it's a very bad reflection. And then some of them say, well, don't upset Health Canada. Don't go back and discuss it. Just take it and just accept whatever they want to do. And that's not the best way to go about it because at the end of the day, in a mature industry, there's always ongoing conversations on the regulatory side between, the regulator and the regulatee. I was, the Crown, I was in meetings with heads of Shell and Exxon, and we were in court with them over massive issues. But it didn't stop conversations around.
Well, you have to have conversations to get resolve.
Yeah. So, right? And plus, what happens at the inspector level is not necessarily relevant at all to what happens at the policy level. And we need to have those mature conversations. Look, some things can be happening that, mistakes can happen on an operation level. Doesn't mean you can't, be engaging people on a policy advanced kind of, next steps where we want to go from a regulatory perspective.
Well, it sounds like that's a clear message then to anyone listening, especially the executives that oversee some of these operations. Like you got to, I've heard reports before about QAPs either being let go or come down on super hard because some, licenses, we like to say licenses rise and fall with them, but they don't need to be chastised the way they are over something that is due to an inspection when maybe it shouldn't have been there.
It's a bad KPI. It's a very bad KPI.
Yes, thank you.
I've had to deal with a lot of QA scenarios, and I'm 4 years not in an LP. I'm 4 years consulting now, and which is a lifetime.
Wow.
The QA world is an interesting world because you're right. There's a lot of pressure on them, and I think in the past, as we evolved from medical, we had a lot of QAPs that were hardcore pharma.
Yeah.
And they're a different culture because absolutely, an injectable cancer drug, it's a different risk profile.
Yeah, absolutely.
To 10 milligram gummies. Right. So, I think QAs and QAPs and industries have had to evolve their understanding of the hazard by exposure and the risk benefit. Because if you overinvest in a QAP and a QMS and a quality management system, it can really be anti-competitive.
Right.
You have to find the right balance to make sure that you're being compliant, that your products are safe, and that that you can stand over your products. But at the same time, you can't be spending cogs and overhead on having crazy standards.
You're right.
Because it's not appropriate, and it's a very competitive market, and you have to dial it in correctly. So I've spent a lot of time with QAPs and QA systems and management to help with that, because you can have that conversation. And luckily for me, I can go in as, very often I'm brought in, say, look, we're spending this amount of money. It's crazy. We're trying to lean our operations, but we're being forced to do all of this from SOPs and from quality. So come in, work, and in my situation, I have a lot of QA experience, a lot of regulatory experience. I also have that damn PhD that allows me to speak to other QAPs. So it's been pretty successful when we tried to lean quality systems as well. Right.
I've never thought of it that way, Shane, because there would be a huge opportunity in streamlining and leaning out those operations. Like someone that comes from operations, Six Sigma, it was always about that, right? Whether or not you were introducing Kaizen or anything like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I always knew when I would have SOPs shared with me for review, and I'm like, why are you doing something like this? My first question would be, what industry is your QA from?
Yeah.
I knew every single time. And it's not, I'm not bashing. I'm not saying that. They are the most systematic, thoughtful approach to things, and they do things for a reason that way. But in this industry that is already just overbearing and difficult to make money in and have some sort of ROI, at introducing all of these additional steps when they were not necessary, I just saw it as it was just bloated operations.
Yeah, and there, look, quality people sometimes, quality systems and quality teams, they can be seen as the internal police and that's a bad way to go about it, because it should never be, no, you can't do that.
Right.
It should be, no, and how do we get to yes together?
Right. Yeah.
Let's have that conversation. I understand why it makes sense to do some operations this way now, because we're saving, a bucket cart.
Right.
Like I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but I know there's a lot of sales guys out there that would
It's a
love
lot of
it.
money, man.
Yeah, right. Like on margin, it means
Yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's just one example. It's not.
For sure.
It's a notional example, but when you've had situations I've walked into, and you hear stories about the QA team, we want to move from booties to Crocs in the system. That's fine, but they want us to sample the Crocs to do a risk assessment on if there's a piece of Croc gets into. Like, guys, let's back up here again. Like, I understand. Well, let's have the conversation about hazard by exposure equals risk.
Right.
Like, let's do that. Right.
So you see the intent. And
it's good. But... It's absolutely. And to be fair, the management sometimes, if something happens in a recall or it's a mislabel, or they blame the QA, but quality, as you know, is a culture. It's not a person.
That's right. It
can't be. And we all hold hands and take responsibility for the quality of the product. Everybody on site, not just management, not just cleaners, just everybody. It has to be front of mind. It's a culture. And unfortunately, though, I think there's been situations where management turn around and just fire QAs, get in there, fire QAs. That's, from an executive perspective, that is awful, right? Because that then turns those people into, like,
they're anti-QA.
The QA people then become really scared for the jobs, and then they pile up all what they do to protect that system. Then is pile up burden, operational burden, and that costs money. So it might be short term, not too bad, but long term it can really impact the bottom line.
That's a really good point, man. I've never really thought of it that way. And I remember, we went through this, for the first 4 years of it anyways, where the most valuable players, right? QA, everyone wanted great QA, but as soon as there was an issue, you see someone on LinkedIn, QA, looking for new work. And it was they're always the, the cut man. They're always gone, right?
They're always the patsy, right?
Patsy's a better term for it, but it's true. That's what happened.
Yeah, and it's terrible. It shouldn't be. And I remember, I think, to be honest, I've been through recalls, and we had a pesticide issue early days. I remember I had to deal with that. And it was after the big pesticide issues, microbutanol issues. And I'd worked in recall and Canadian Food Inspection Agency. I actually did risk communication work for the Walkerton inquiry as well, early days, about how to communicate risk and how to respond in risk crisis situations around food and safety. Not like PR, right? Like how do you do? And I remember at the time, we handled that very differently. I called up the old president of CFA, who was my old boss, and he got on the phone from the golf clubs. He said, "Listen, don't do it that way." And I remember him talking to the board, and he said, "This is, Shane's right. Do it this way, this way, this way, this way." And it actually worked really, really well. And we actually got accolades we actually got more orders when we reached out to all the patients and said, "This is what's happening." He said, "Oh yeah, we get it." So it was a real learning process. We didn't just fire everybody. We did a full investigation as well, and we got to the bottom of it. And it was an interesting time. But I think we set the standard for how to communicate that and how to roll out a recall.
Well, I remember looking at that and going, okay, because it was actually that started us in the process of doing fire drills with some of our clients. Right, just so they could understand. This is where you need to access everything. You got to make sure this stuff is up to date, right? These reports are going to require, et cetera, patient records. Okay. How do you go about accessing them? Communicating with them. So I don't want to spend too much time in Aurora, but I do want to at least touch on, what was it again? It was the air quote flavored, it wasn't the oils, it's sublingual. What was it that you went to hell for us and back on this? Because I remember Health Canada pushing back quite hard on you and Aurora in this matter.
Yeah, so we So what I do, part of my consultancy is on my team, we offer a turnkey product development team for hire.
Right.
And this comes from the history of, I've always been doing product development, whether it was the first flavored spray, and they call me Peppermint Patty from.
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
Well, that was one.
That. Yeah.
That was one, and because we were able to get the first legal mint spray past Health Canada, and that was like 2016.
Yeah, it was way back.
Or 17, I can't remember.
17, yeah.
It was pre-legalization.
Yeah.
And that did very well. And then we did the first capsules. We did the first edibles with the decarb product.
Yeah.
Which Health Canada lost their mind.
They fucking snapped.
Yeah, they lost their mind.
I remember that.
Yeah, so that was a loophole because we were selling you making a little capsule maker and the capsules, and then you just put it all in and just close it, and then you had loads of milligrams.
It's like a Play-Doh kit.
It was 2 seconds. They lost their mind, and then we had that's why I was kind of hired by Aurora, is because they were trying to they were positioning themselves for Cannabis 2.0 at that stage. And, but also I love the Aurora back then, the Aurora approach where they were really bringing the black market and the white market, the future white market together.
Yeah. And
I have some really good friends that I've learned so much, like Dieter, for example.
I was just gonna say Dieter is the fucking man. He is a legend. He is the GOAT. 100%. Oh my God. Yeah.
And we used to go at each other, like people would see us in meetings and we'd go at each other, and then we'd hug at the end and go, yeah, you're Scottish, you're Irish, you're bastard. But it was really good. And so at Aurora, we actually did a couple of really neat things early on. We had the first vape pen before vape pens were legal.
Mm-hmm.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the team, we sat down and we looked at it and we said, look, if we have a 510 cart and we put product into it, like ingestible oil, but we do it in such a way that we had a great CO2 extract. It was back then, it was basically resin, really high quality resin out of the, Medrelief operation.
Okay. Yeah.
And Tangi was another one. And I said, if we put it in there and we actually, redesigned the 510 cart to have a screw mouthpiece, not like a clip-on hard piece, and that you could screw it on and off. That's a container.
Yep.
And then we just put a label on it. And so I ran it up to Paul in Ottawa, in Health Canada, and they were losing their mind. I go, you should not care what people do. We sell them a ingestible extract.
Right.
It's irrelevant what they do with it.
Mm.
And I went, yeah, you're right. And so we sold the first ones to be grandfathered. We sold the first ones 2 days before legalization in October.
Oh, wow.
So we were but unfortunately we were like the dog that caught the car that was chasing. We were so busy doing everything else, getting ready, that we didn't have time to scale up this particular SKU because we weren't sure if it was going to actually happen. But the team were really good. Tyler, who's over at Canopy,
I remember Tyler.
He's still got. I think they have a patent on the actual screw cart. That was So it was innovative stuff. And then we had sublinguals that weren't sublinguals, and it was.
I remember that. Yeah.
So anyway, I like to push the regulatory boundaries.
It's needed. I wanted to get your take, Shane, on because what was Organigram up against again? God, there's so much clutter with what's going on in the industry.
It was the Jolts, wasn't it?
Jolts, yeah. Quick weigh in on that. What are your thoughts? Where did all this come from, and do you agree with the findings?
First of all, I think Organigram did something that no one has ever done before, and that was they challenged the regulator. The best thing that could come out of the whole Jolts thing was they actually said, no, it's not clear. You handled this wrong. We were fully compliant. You knew we were fully compliant.
Right.
We're going to take you to court. We're going to take a federal review of this, right?
Yeah.
And that was the best thing because that is normal process in food, pharma, mobile tech, IP,
everything, literally everything, especially when it comes to innovation and change. Yeah.
So the cannabis industry has been afraid of its shadow, but it shouldn't be, because this is normal. And the jolts, because I remember we had the mints at Aurora early days. I don't know if you remember and this was the concept that I was going towards at the time, and we were told, no, it's mint. But what they did was really novel. We looked at it as well at the time, but we were just, you have to weigh up a whole bunch of things.
There's a lot of things on the go, yeah.
Well, what gets gated and what doesn't get gated from product development is always interesting. But needless to say, they used basically the oligo starch concept, and they were able to find a loophole, which I thought was very good and perfectly fine, because there's some of us out there making capsules, and there's this thin interpretation line. Well, a capsule is not a edible, but a lozenge sublingual that meets the ingredient requires of an extract, an ingestible extract, is an edible. Right. So anyway, I'm not going to get all into nerdy, confusing things, but I really did enjoy the court case. And Organigram did wonderful. They didn't have to; they could have just bowed and accepted it. But it would just show that Health Canada hadn't their act together. It was sent back for review. So in theory, Organigram won that. But
I view it as a win there, at least,
And they recently just Health Canada relaunched their definitions of ingestibles and edibles. Okay. And it's still pretty messy. And there's still some loopholes that people haven't found. And watch this space. But so certainly there's issues as well. We saw the same thing with melatonin and CBD.
Okay.
That was melatonin. Was being combined with CBD, perfectly legal. Got through the whole NNCP process. And it was actually not the cannabis team that had the problem with it. It ended up being over with the pharmaceutical and NHP side, where they said at the time was that, melatonin, people know, but the fact that you use it as an ingredient, people know it. And I remember at the time that the manufacturer said, "It's okay, we'll use the scientific name for melatonin." No. No, people would still know, and the definition of what was kicking it out of a cannabis product into a pharma cover was that people would more reasonably interpret it as having a health claim by the ingredient. It was really gray and hazy. All I'll say is that there's a very large piece of access to information, freedom to information request gone in that. So, watch that space as well. And that brings you into the whole CBD world, CHP world.
Well, in which we definitely want to talk about, because the work with I always get the acronym messed up, but it's the Cannabis Health Product Coalition. Is that correct? Yeah. If I try and say the acronym, I fuck it up every time.
CHPC.
CHPC. There you go. Yeah. Okay. We need to bring the audience up to speed that is not aware of this. So, I've been saying this forever. You've been saying it forever. Many have been saying this forever, that CBD has no place. Not that we don't think it should be regulated, not that we don't think it should be tested, but it should not necessarily be sold, maybe as well as in a dispensary, in a retail location. The vast majority of the demographic or the consumer that are looking for such a product, they're not necessarily going there. And we've seen the decline of medical I won't say they're not prescriptions, but recommendations. We've seen the decline in that. So you and a bunch of very intelligent individuals got together and assembled this coalition to challenge Health Canada on this when it comes to CBD products and related products, that they should be available at health stores and pharmacies if over a certain milligram percentage. And you've been fighting it for a while. And it's almost like now what was the last update? I remember being on the call, but I think something was submitted to Health Canada February and nothing.
Yeah. So
nothing.
So just to back on this. So when we were all in 2016 discussing with the task force and McLennan and all that jazz, around how legalization would work and how cannabis would work. The idea was, listen, we're going to regulate cannabis, and we understand, because you've explained it to us, that THC is very different to CBD, and there's a whole bunch of minor cannabinoids, and we really don't know the risks around those. But let's just take the THC and CBD as far ends of the spectrum. And they said, and it's in black and white, 2016, 2017. We're going to basically allow a different route to market for CBD.
Right.
And maybe that could have a health claim.
Right.
Year after year, we get to it. They haven't got to it. And then finally, a few of us got together and said, listen, this CBD is the cannabinoid that regulation forgot. It's been dragged along here in a regulatory framework that it doesn't belong in from a risk profile perspective. And Health Canada actually went ahead and got a scientific advisory committee to look at it, and they said the same thing. Yeah, no, it should be deregulated to a different regulatory regime that would allow this. And then they sat on that, didn't do anything, and they asked for more consultation, right? And we sent everything in, and then it sat for a year, and we went, okay, this is it. Let's start knocking on doors and really ramping up some websites, social media, embarrassing. Now Eric Costin's going back, so we're going to embarrass him over there. And we were meeting with parliamentary committee, parliamentary secretary for health, the minister of health. We're just doing the
work,
right? The lobbying, the policy work. We wrote the policy. We basically give it to them. Here's something. If you're having a hard time coming up with something, here's something that we think might work. Feel free to rip it apart and draw your own conclusions. But here, it's free. No need to.
What more could you ask for?
No need to hire expensive government consultants. We're just going to give it to you. Taxpayers' value. And then they dragged their feet, and then we got into it, and they started to have the audacity to say, "Oh, we don't have resources." Go, no. You have a regulatory fee, 2.3% of everything sold outside medical, so all the recreational. It gets a special regulatory fee. This is not tax. This is not excise. This is not anything. This just goes to support Health Canada's regulatory work.
Right.
And
what's that equate to, Shane? Do you have
I can't remember
approximate? Okay, we'll figure it out. It's
whatever 2.3 of is of probably say, at least $1 billion.
Right. Yeah. So they don't have money. Okay. So there's a problem.
Right. So then that went away because we embarrassed them on that one, because, usually the default for government workers, resources, we can't do everything. Yeah, no, this one you do. And then it was, well, that's the cannabis team. We're, because Health Canada has decided to put this regulatory initiative in the hands of the natural health product group, which is a different group. So it's actually not in the cannabis space anymore. So the people we're interacting with now as part of the coalition are not cannabis people. They're natural health product people. Okay. And they said, we're really busy with like nicotine pouches. I go, okay, stop. Just stop. Like this is now embarrassing. It's 6 years on the road.
Yeah.
You've got to do something. So the most recent update that we heard was that they're going to now issue a white paper before the end of before the end of fall, which is December 21st. But that's again going to be yet more rounds of consultation. And quite frankly, we're off the opinion. I'll say I'm off the opinion that they're buying time next election. All of this.
It's what it seems like at this point. Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah,
they're dragging the puck for the Canadian, or ragging the puck. I don't know what the term is.
They're doing a lot of different things. Yeah, we can do football.
In Ireland we say putting it on the long finger, but I've heard that's really like I have to go. It's an actual term or phrase. Like my mother, it doesn't make any sense. You just and I actually have to go into I think it was used in Eastern Canada a couple of times, and in media, I had to prove at one point to somebody that this is not a disgusting term; it's a term and phrase. So so we're keeping the pressure on. It's putting the pressure on. It's making sure it's not forgotten. Doesn't it be priority? We're doing it because you're right. CBD doesn't belong in the same regulatory framework as THC, and maybe other minor cannabinoids don't either.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
but I mean, at least one. We need a domino there, like one domino. Because I mean, the time is now. Like so many, you've worked with them, you've consulted with them, you have friends in the industry. These companies are struggling. If they are careful we say, health forward company, like God forbid, there's benefit to it. If they are in that space, they are really struggling. And I don't know how much more time they have.
Yeah, and it is a problem because, and you see some very strange things happening. Where it's really quite misleading to customers as well, even in the legal market. So first of all, you've got a whole black market of CBD that says it's going to cure you of cancer. It's going to do all these. Which is not, let's be honest, right? And that's unfair and not true, and that's misleading. And then you've got on those products, you've got really no quality oversight. They're mixing it with all kinds of things, and it's there's all my I was going to say my parents' friends, but like some of my friends now are playing pickleball, and they've got the bad knees and they're popping CBDs. We're old, man.
I guess play some pickleball. I'm not even shitting you. Pickleball tennis is done. No way.
Well, you still look 18. I don't. I can tell you what cannabis has done is given me gray hair. Because when I went into the space,
think I wear a hat and sit hiding behind this desk. This is why.
So certainly, I think there's all this. There's this market there's demand for it, and what's happening even in the legal side is I read a press release, and I don't know, you can edit it out if you want, but there's a large retailer, it's called Long Tide or whatever it's called, and they have their own store brand of some products that they're making health claims, and they're relating to crystals because, and it's in the press release, we've named these products after crystals because everybody knows these crystals have beneficial health or have ability to have health benefits. Going, what? Now we're going like next level that we've got like so-called like snake oil crystals going on. So
I mean, when you don't have some relaxation, some change, people are going to do whatever they have to, right?
Yeah.
And one of the issues, I mean, you touched on it, the black market, where I get the most frustrated is I'm not saying the consumer is not sophisticated, but when it comes to understanding THC, CBD, CBG, CBN, any of these cannabinoids, they're not, they could be executives, they could be steel workers. I don't care who they are. They're not spending the time to research because, like everyone, they go, will that work? Okay, good. I'm going to take it. I caught some reference somewhere in the world. It might have been on a taxi for all I know. And I want to try this. And what's happening is, like, my wife is a registered holistic nutritionist. She's at a healthcare store or a health food store, and she'll be at the CHFA, right?
Yeah.
And she has brought products back home just to get she doesn't believe in it, but she's like, and I'm like, that's not CBD. She's like, what do you mean? I go, oh, that's not CBD. I've said this earlier in the segment, so apologies, audience, but that is not CBD. And this is what's creating the confusion. Those are hemp seed oil derived products that have zero cannabinoids in them. And then they put so we can't even put out literature. We can't promote, we can't market. And then I can walk by the counter and pick up the benefits of CBD for this certain brand. And I'm like,
or they have
my God,
they have the cannabis leaf on the products for hemp oil because it's true, hemp oil leaves are the same, and
leaves look very similar.
So it's total confusion. So I think there is a real need in the market and from a public health perspective to have CBD regulated properly.
Right.
And we're not saying no regulation.
No. It should still be regulated, but I mean, at least lacks a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Availability where it can be distributed and sold.
And we have tools already to do that, already structured. Take, for example, iron.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh yeah.
You can go into a food store, you can go into a grocery store and say you see iron content, and you're allowed one type of food claim on iron, that it's a good source of iron.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And iron, understand, people think, oh, that's good. That's that's by proxy. But if you go into the pharmacy, you can go to a natural health product, not behind the counter, just and get your vitamins, and there's iron tablets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You can also then go behind the counter at the pharmacy and get a higher level of iron, right? That the doctor will suggest you get. Now, it's not prescription, but you get it, and it's a super. You can then get prescription level iron at a higher level, and then you can go to hospital and you can get like injections.
You can get IVs. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a spectrum there all the way, and there is an ability. I'm not saying we should get IVs of CBD, but
I like
a
the
product
idea of it.
Product innovation. I'll come back to it. But certainly there is a regulatory framework, and I'm not going to get all geeky on it, that it is possible to say, okay, CBD up to 200 milligrams, you can get it as a vitamin, like in the same level, in the same structure as a vitamin, right? Or with the same combination. It could be your daily vitamin pill with CBD, right? So 200 milligrams a day, right? So whatever that was, 3 times a day, twice a day, 100 milligrams. Anything over that, you'd have to be behind the counter.
Sure.
We're not saying don't sell it at cannabis stores,
right?
But at least then you're building a framework where people can understand. And you can have unlimited at the cannabis store.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to work, but certainly I think there's a real opportunity to start demystifying, properly educating, having proper quality overview, and be able to put it in context like anything else.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think if anything, if the stance, there's so many, and the coalition has done a great job of this, even providing the policy, but let's not forget there's a safety issue here still, and they could be full of God knows what, but not to mention the amount of oil potentially, because a lot of these come in an oil form, not just a capsule, and maybe ingesting that much hemp seed oil is not so good, right? I'm just saying there's so many levers to pull here, but least of which, what are the potential markets? So right now, I think CBD, where did I read this? It's like 45 million, somewhere in there, with the potential upside of close to 2 billion over a decade. What was that?
Yeah, so there was a study done at the University of Ottawa that was actually the Canadian Health Food Association helped put it together, looking at the market opportunity of CBD only in Canada. And, it's $1 billion, absolutely over I think it was a 5-year window. And that's quite conservative, because if you even, and you can't do it with the data right now, with OCS data or any of the data. You can't pull out, all those products that have CBD or CBD combination. But I'm pretty sure, CBD, is close to representing, between 2 and 4%. Of the entire market. Now CBD vapes, they're still popular. It's still niche within the grand scheme of things.
For sure.
But don't forget, this is where people are having to go into a cannabis store,
right?
Have that have those conversations, and there's some people that still don't like to go into cannabis stores.
There's a lot of people that don't.
So I think one of the biggest failures of, in particular, the provincially based sales was the real failure of the online market. OCS never got above 4% of total sales on online. And but if you look at the percentage of CBD online sales versus non, it's multiple times,
right? Which should tell you something.
Well, it was last year. That's when I looked at it.
I think it still is. I forget where I'd seen it, but because you're talking about overall market, I think I had a conversation last week where they just completed some sort of study on it, or looked at some data, and it was like 1.6%. So you're right in that ballpark. Total. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's not huge, but again, you're a very limited market right now. If we were able to free CBD,
Yeah.
from the regulatory change that it has.
Like, are these bumper stickers, man? Like, is this what we should have? Free CBD? Like, seriously, like, what do we do?
Yeah, I think so. So we're going to see. We've given Health Canada on the coalition side. We've given Health Canada time because they asked us to give us time. But we really believe that we would see a framework, not another consultation round, and because we don't want to go backwards. So there's going to be a little bit more time. Like I said, this update that we got was only last week. So I think there's going to be a ramp up on the coalition's work, and we're going to finally expand it. We've been keeping it pretty tight because, Health Canada said, listen, we're working on it, we've given them enough time now and latitude, and believed them long enough, or given them enough rope, whichever way you want to look at it, it's tactically, to be, and we're ready to ramp up, I think. And we'll, I wouldn't be surprised if you see the coalition going out asking for support now, much more. You don't want to do a letter writing campaign.
Sure. Yeah.
If you don't get the volume, right? This needs to be so our strategy, our tactics early on was to really focus on putting the pressure internally, like showing the mirror, the embarrassment, the time. This is terrible governance. This is, having conversations with key MPs to say, listen, this is a problem. You've forgotten, you haven't done it. You haven't, mission is not complete on cannabis until this is done.
Yeah.
And, so we'll see what happens. But I think it's, for me, I'm more excited about the international trade opportunities in CBD. We've been left behind.
Yeah.
Like Japan is going this way. Australia has already gone down the road. You've seen CBD now be defined in the EU as in the UK specifically, but like they're using the same EU model. Technically EU as a novel food.
Right.
So how do we get it out of the cannabis space and be able to export into those jurisdictions that are allowing more and more CBD to be used in a legal manner, right? And just look down south of the border, it's crazy. Right? Post the Farm Bill and the hemp and CBD, like we're missing huge amounts of opportunity globally.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, it's not that they're not looking. I think it's just, again, dragging heels, dragging the puck, whatever it might be. But when you look at like Danny with Bleu in Quebec, he's got 1 million square feet of hemp production under glass, something like that. It's not all being sold in Canada, right? The export market is very real.
It's for medical though,
right?
You cannot. I've not seen any export market into a non-medical space because Health Canada will only sell. And now he could be doing it into an API into medical, but
sure.
I have never seen because you still have to have an export permit.
Right. Well, what I was saying, sorry, Shane, what I was saying is you got to think that much investment into that. You see that there's a silver lining somewhere there. But if we're not preparing ourselves to be able to have a more open market when it comes to this, we're just going to, first market mover advantage if we want with Canada and cannabis, great. But as you say, the job is not done. We're not complete yet. There's miles to travel. And I see all these companies, we went through a list of them earlier. There's friends, there's family, there's acquaintances that they're at their wit's end and financially at their wit's end as well, because, if you just open the market up, open where you can get it, where it's available, start educating a little bit more, they will be successful as shown by other countries, other markets. So anyways, we'll go on. We want to make sure that we're supporting it because we think that it's very needed. You want a free CBD bumper sticker campaign? I'll fucking lead it, buddy. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, I put out that terminology that we should have buttons and bumpers on social media, and the rest of the guys are going, "Yeah, Shane, stick to the product development. Maybe we'll
I like
we'll figure it. I like it too, but then again,
I see it at every health food store, natural healthcare product store, and pharmacies. I see it everywhere because again, it's opening it up. It opens up the market. More people can take advantage of it if they will, but at least cash in on it.
Well, again, for me, I think it's a huge opportunity internationally. What happens, in Canada is one thing, but Canada is so well designed, and it's not just cannabis producers; it's all the hemp farmers,
right?
Like it's a huge. I know Danny. Like the idea that Danny should be growing, or blood should be growing under glass is crazy, right?
Yeah.
If you look at Eastern Europe, and good for blood, but they are the exception, I think, mainly because he did so well out of there's deep pockets there. I know he's not spending it all. He's a great business
very
guy.
smart. Yeah,
he's very
incredibly
smart.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but I think there's a cushion there that others don't have, like a hemp farmer.
They may not be feeling it. Yeah,
a hemp farmer in Alberta doesn't have.
Right.
And part of our ability is to be able to mobilize those hemp farmers for another market. Hemp's a great rotational crop as well across the board for any farmer. And I think I remember early days when we were all told CBD was going to be deregulated. I remember going to conferences and Health Canada presenting it. I won't name names, but Mike McGuire said he's not with Health Canada anymore. So but there was hemp farmers in the room, and that they were tangibly excited, and some of them bought a lot of hemp and bought infrastructure, and it never came to be. So the job is not done, and CBD is left behind.
Exactly. All right. Well, listen, my friend, we could go on for hours. Love catching up with you. Well, next time we'll get a drink and maybe a vape together, but we've been doing something interesting over the last, 15, 20 episodes where we have our last guest ask a question of our incoming guest without knowing who it's going to be. And then you get to pose a question to our next guest for next week. I don't know where we stole it from, but we like it, so we'll use it. Anyways, Wes typically goes Wes is not feeling so good, so he's just taking it easy today.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. So last week we had Jamie Lipowitz on of High Buds Club, and our question was a two-parter. You might not want to answer part two, but we'll see. So part one would be, if you could hire anyone in the industry right now, who would that be and why? And the second part to that question is, if you could fire anyone in the industry, who would you fire?
Okay. Anyone I'd hire, let me see. There's so many good people, man. It's really there's so many good people.
Yeah.
I think who is Andrew Hand was a great breeder. I know he got picked up. He left. He was a Meadow Leaf. He went to Aurora, and then he moved on, and he's been picked up at the other side. He's a great breeder. Product development wise, some of the team have gone over to, some of my old team have gone to, they're all over the place, and I'm really proud of that my team are there's Tilray, there's Canopy, they're embedded at some project managers, but it's really hard to say, and I don't mean to go around in circles, but for what job, right? So that's a challenge.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is defining it, right? So let's say you need a right hand right now. You've got a new product, not even new product, new business opportunity. It's in this regulated space. You need someone now, and you need to make a decision immediately.
Probably Jay McMillan.
There you go. Mark it down, Wes. Who's Jay McMillan?
He was the chief commercial officer at Hexo, and he's an independent consultant now, but he's on the board with Christina Lake, and he's still in the mix, but he gets things done. He understands the space, reasonable, mature, right hand man, would reflect the things I would respect.
Yeah. Okay. Now the hard one, if you want to answer it.
Well, there was a second. Yeah, there's a second.
Who would you fire in the industry? And it doesn't mean don't name anyone from your team. No, it could be from regulator all the way down to producer processor. I don't know.
I have two people I'd like to fire for two different reasons. So not one, two. I honestly think there's not enough. There's a lot of waste at OCS. I think I I know they fired so many CEOs at OCS, but there's a huge problem there. We always talk about, oh, how much does OCS make for the province? But it's how much does OCS leave on the table from inefficiencies, and how much are we not giving that we could actually give back to producers and retailer shop owners, and like we're too focused on what they gave back to the province, what did they make? Right. That's only that could be so much more, or because there's a percentage of waste there, and I see it every single day. It's just hand over fist waste, and
Has it gotten better over the last year and a half, 2 years?
How many people there work there now? What's the FTE count?
I don't know.
What's the head count?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But what few fail to realize is that the OCS, love them or hate them, any monies that they don't spend or have set aside for their budgets, that goes to the Minister of Finance, and we're talking hundreds of millions,
which is fine, but it could be more.
It could be more going back. As you're saying,
but it could be more going back or forward.
Right.
The entity that is OCS and the waste that they do, not being able to update websites, not being able to get products, aligned properly, not to be it's just the amount of time and effort. And not only that, though, what's the burden that's on the industry of having to interact with the OCS in such an inefficient manner, right?
I'll say LP still, every LP that has to interact, I'm like, we ask, which province do you struggle with the most? It's always Ontario.
Yeah.
It's always Ontario.
I think I think just because you're getting better, that's great, but are you getting better fast enough? Are you getting, like having low expectations, that might, it's not a good, it's not a good structure to frame APIs on. Right. Certainly and I think that there's a lot to be said there. And quite frankly, the quality, they had some good people. I've talked to the people who've left. I see who they haven't hired. I know people who applied for jobs. Anyway, I haven't, because I wouldn't get one. But
well, you're certainly not getting one now.
No, absolutely. But just the amount of money that goes into the waste that's there is a huge problem. Yeah. And then I think I'd have to fire a certain head of a certain retailer because the business practices are a disaster. And I'll say data fees. People talk about excise and that issue, but when I see a retailer making $6 million a quarter on so-called data fees, it's a huge problem because it's killing innovation. It's killing small retailers. It's killing what I say true competition. There's really talented sales and marketing people who basically have to compete with people writing checks.
Right. And you can't compete with that.
Yeah.
Any other industry has proven you can't compete against that.
And this argument that, it happens in grocery is not a good argument. We don't want the same structure as we see in grocery. And we see that changing now. And there's a lot of pressure on groceries, right? And it might be great to be the Westons of cannabis, but it's not good for everybody else. And I'm no communist or no perspective, but I think competition is good and you have to continue with it. And certainly in my mind, I think over the long term, people get great exits, fine, but it's not going to be good for the industry. And it's a real shame because it captures the licensed producers as well. There's some of them that they're now, I would call data fee captured.
Yeah,
they can't get out of it, right? So it's a price of doing business, and it's not even a business. It's
it's pay to play. At the end of the day, it's pay to play, and I feel
when does that turn into pay to stay?
Right, 100%. And that's what I think we struggle with. You talk about people always say, "Oh, it's it's normal," and the ones that are air quote okay with it, they're the ones that say, "Oh yeah, but we have to do it in grocery. We do it in alcohol. We do it here. We do it there."
It's not normal in other jurisdictions.
No,
right? Like it's
I feel though, even if it were to happen, because we knew that gradually, eventually it's going to happen. I feel it just happened way too soon, and which we should have known it would, but the industry didn't get a chance to even figure out who they were yet. The brands and the operators were still trying to understand distribution, sales and marketing, let alone anything else. And then all of a sudden, pay us and you go on our shelf.
But Tom, it's also this, right? It's not fair because you've got, if you've got a small LP, or not even a small LP, if you've got an LP that is not publicly listed and can raise money by selling their own, by multiplying their stock, or producing stock and multiplying it, right? What happens with the big side? They're competing with big LPs that are on the traded market. Mm-hmm. They issue more shares themselves. They get money that way, and then they give that money into data fees,
right?
So they get volume of sales, right? But the people who don't have access to that, for example, selling shares, they don't have that war chest or ability.
No, they've got their life savings already tied up in their facilities,
exactly,
and their inventory,
and I see some great people operating and that are really hammered by this because they're trying to be fair. They're trying to do it on the to compete with their skill sets with what they have, and there's other people just going out selling stock that they're issuing themselves, taking that money and then giving it to a retailer who'll buy more of their product, and hopefully their stock price will go up and then they can sell more stock. So people like small business people, like Shauna Levy is a great example. She's an amazing woman, ahead of her time.
Yeah, we love Shauna.
Ahead of her time, and she, that's what ate into hers, right? Like she was willing to compete on true price. I call it true price.
Yeah.
Not a backdoor price option. She was willing to compete on all the parameters that competition should be on.
Yeah.
But it was all ripped apart by this, and now you see people copying her product.
Right. And if we say, because someone will say, oh, they just need to get better at their marketing and their branding. Hello,
no,
Sean is a legend when it comes to this.
Yeah,
so
and
it's
she's
not
proven
that.
it in other industry, right?
100%. Yeah.
So the level, it's a tilted playing field, and you ask, so where does the money's coming from? Well, these people have access to be able to raise money quickly, easily. Right. More than other people, and especially now when interest rates are so high, it's hard to access capital. Everyone's got their hands in their pockets and nothing's coming out. It's a different market completely now, and I say that because obviously I also work in MDMA, and we're a small startup on that front.
Yeah,
and it's hard to raise capital if you're not already out there.
For sure. Well, the MDMA is another episode, and we want to get there, but I think we're getting close to an hour and a half, which is fine. I mean, we could go forever.
Wow, it feels like 2 minutes.
But Shane, we're going to do it again. We'll have a follow up, 100%. Man, I just love talking to you. This is just like, being back in the Edmonton airport and such.
Yeah.
We still need...
we need a question.
We need Shane's question for next week's guests. Yeah.
Wow. Next question. Wow. You caught me on the spot here.
They may or may not be in the industry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Who would you? Probably people have asked who would you like to get high with already. Who in the industry would you like to get high in with? That would be my one.
I've always liked that question though,
but it's probably already asked. So
doesn't matter. I think it's been asked once.
Okay,
but that's okay because we can ask it again. You're in control of the question.
Yeah, but you put me on a hop here, right? You put me on the spot. The only question is this. That's I should have known this was coming, but obviously I forgot to prepare my question, so I humbly apologize.
That's okay.
I think what I'd ask is if not who, or maybe where would you like to get high that you haven't got high yet, but it has to be in Canada.
In Canada,
what was the classic? What would the place to get high would be that would be indicative of everything that we've come through and reflect it. So
that's cool. I like that.
On a cliff, or I don't know.
Yeah. I like it. Mr. Morris, it's been a pleasure,
That's
my
better.
friend. I love our conversations. Always have, regardless if it's a phone call or an email or just
Well, you were
chatting.
always, honestly, we used to call each other. Well, I used to call you at ungodly hours of the morning to try to get things done. Right? I always like people who get things done. It may not always be. You can argue, well, things aren't always the right decision, but at least people who can make decisions. That I respect that, and happy to talk. I know cannabis is not a gateway drug, but we're always happy to talk about the MDMA.
Well, I do have very interest, or a lot of interest in that area, because it seems that there's certain individuals that have taken their skill sets and their understanding of how this industry came to be, and they're now transferring that into others, and it makes sense. Especially with all of the clinical studies that we're seeing. So, but we'll get there.
Yeah, for sure.
Legacy is about legacies. It's about everything. It can be anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, we appreciate you joining us, Shane. I'm sure you've got lots on the go, probably more customers and clients all over you, but
I'm getting to the age now where it's, I don't know, it's busy. A lot of international customers and a lot. The business is still going well. I'm lucky enough. I don't do any advertising, and it's all about, you're only as good as your last engagement or your last product.
Like that. That's 100% truth. And who knows, probably blow up after this gets out there. They'll be like, oh my God, listen to him. We knew he was smart, but holy shit.
I don't think I'm smart. You'll probably get calls from the many comms. The many taxpayer-funded comms people at OCS will probably be losing their mind if you keep it in.
No, we'll be keeping it in. Yeah.
Hey, I'm paying for it, so hopefully they call.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate your time. We thank you for joining Legacies.
Thanks, Wes. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate the time.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
Mr. Shane Morris, not doctor. I knew it. As soon as I said, he just started shaking his head. Fuck, man, we could go on for hours. I know we say that about all our guests, but the stories, he's just so ingrained in the industry. He operated at a different level. Like there's
a wealth of knowledge there, and it was nice to have some insight into what it might have been like inside those rooms when everything was happening. That's fairly interesting, and it is hard to, it's always easy to jump on the wagon of Health Canada isn't listening, politicians aren't listening. But that's not actually fully the case all the time, right? There's definitely stuff behind the scenes. Not all the time.
Not all the time.
It's just nice to have that point of view, that perspective.
Yeah. Well, I learned a lot. As much as Shane and I go way back, but you don't always have the luxury. I mean, half the time he was calling to yell at me because something was down, and I never took it. But that's the thing. I never took any of that personal. I understood, and obviously we wanted to get them up and running, and he's always been thankful of that, and including yourself and the teams that worked so hard for Aurora in those days, and Hexo. I mean, but still, it was interesting times, and we take for granted what goes into these regulations, but I won't let it off on CBD, free CBD. I'm gonna get a fucking shirt made, free CBD.
Yeah, start the hashtag.
We might have to. I mean, I don't know, dragging heels for the next election. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but it needs to change, and it needs to change sooner than later. I can't just stand by while so many amazing companies have either failed or about to fail, or next 6 months or so potentially failing. Like, it's just not fair. It's not fair. Like Shane had said, the job's not done. It's not done yet. So anyways, I know you got to get to editing, but hopefully you'll be able to get some rest too. Get some of those vitamins in you. It's a machination in you.
The half pharmacy you bought me? Yeah, I should be able to.
Half pharmacy. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get on with that. Until next week, everyone. This has been Legacies.